All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Certified Lay Minister Interest Meeting. We are pleased to have you with us this evening and appreciate your interest in the Lay Servant Ministry program and specifically learning more about the role of the Certified Lay Minister. My name is John Crane, and I have the privilege of serving as the conference lay leader and our conference director of Lay Servant Ministries. I'm joined this evening by Dr. Jim Brooks, who is going to be working with us as our CLM Cohort director. So let me take just a moment and Jim, give you an opportunity to introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Jim Brooks, and I am the pastor for worship and the arts at Wilkesboro United Methodist Church. And I'm very excited that so many people have expressed interest in knowing about this program. It has been a wonderful thing for me as I've explored, a new way to express my calling and my ministry. For the past 35 years, I have been the director of music at Wilkesboro United Methodist Church, and a few years ago began to look for ways that I might expand that role and to begin doing some more pastoral care and work with some other areas of leadership that I felt some callings in, and this program helped to nurture that and to give some direction to that. So I'm really glad to be a part of this.
Thank you very much, Jim, and we appreciate your leadership, not only at your church, but also as part of our conference program. So this evening, we are going to talk about, we'll be here about an hour, I believe. We have 4 topics that we'd like to cover with you. We're going to start with understanding a little bit more about what is lay servant ministries, and then we'll talk specifically about the role of the certified lay minister. We'll talk about the CLM certification process and some cost considerations and some timing considerations, and then we'll wrap up with next steps. And again, as I said, we will have time for Q&A at the end of the presentation. So I wanted to begin this evening by just giving you a little bit of information about what lay servant ministries is, what the program is, because several of you, when you registered, indicated that you had never taken a lay servant ministry class. And so I wanted to give a little more context. Our lay servant ministries program is a structured training program across the United Methodist Church that equips laity to serve in various roles within their local church and beyond their local church. And lay servant ministries training really focuses in 3 different ministry areas: leading ministries, caring ministries, and communicating ministries. Now, some of you may have been around long enough to know that in the past, we had a similar program, and it was called lay speaking. And back in, it's been quite a while now, maybe back in 2012, through General Conference, they changed the focus at that point and moved from calling it lay speaking ministries to lay servant ministries, because they wanted to recognize that lay speaking kind of put a focus on the aspect of proclamation or leading in worship or preaching. And obviously there's a lot of ways that lay servants can lead and do lead that are not directly related to preaching in their church or in other churches. And so within the broader framework, they changed the name to lay servant and began to broaden out the focus of why individuals might choose to undergo this training. And so within that framework, they came up with 3 different roles under the lay servant ministries umbrella. The first role is the certified lay servant role. And as you can see there, a certified lay servant really serves in a lot of different ways, or may serve in a lot of different ways. They can serve in program leadership roles at their local church. They lead meetings. They teach classes. They serve as chairpersons of committees. They can be involved in helping to preach or lead worship. They can provide congregational care. And they, very often are involved in assisting sometimes with, offering Holy Communion. Of course, I know a lot of folks in our churches do that, whether they're in the lay servant ministry program or not. And so the the way in which most people engage in the lay servant ministries program is by becoming a certified lay servant. But sometimes there is a desire for folks to go beyond that. And so within that, there are two paths that people can choose to go down. You can become what's called a certified lay speaker. And it is confusing a little bit there because they still have that role, and some folks still remember it from the 90s, and they think, oh, I'm a certified lay speaker, because maybe that's what they originally were told, but now they're probably a certified lay servant, although we do have some individuals who actually are certified lay speakers. Certified lay speakers are individuals who feel a particular call in their ministry to proclamation of the word. And so they undergo a specific course of study that enables them to be called upon more regularly, or perhaps for a longer period of time. And so, in our conference, a certified lay speaker might be someone, let's say a particular pastor needed to be on some type of short-term medical leave, or it was going to be for a while. Then the district superintendent might ask one of the certified lay speakers if they would go to that church and preach for 8 Sundays in a row while that person's on leave, kind of thing. The other role, and the one that we're talking about tonight, is a certified lay minister. And so we'll talk more about the specifics of it, but if you look at the role of the certified lay minister, you can see that a certified lay minister is doing many of the things that you would see a certified lay servant do. The difference there is that someone who wants to be a certified lay minister is very often looking to get more involved in providing leadership at either a small membership church, or as part of a program, doing more programmatic leadership within a larger church. And so these individuals will undergo a more rigorous training process that really helps them explore their call, and they work with a particular church and a supervising elder to understand how they will serve as a certified lay minister for their particular calling. So we'll talk more about those different ways, but I guess I wanted to just make sure that folks understood that the certified lay minister role is a specific, more advanced certification than the way in which many people in our conference choose to engage in the lay servant ministries program, which is primarily by becoming a certified lay servant. So if we think about this role of the certified lay minister, it is an emerging ministry role, but with historic grounding. In our United Methodist faith, we have always really celebrated the work of the laity, and going all the way back to John Wesley and early Methodism, we had folks that were class exhorters that led meetings and other kinds of things where they were not ordained clergy, but they played a really significant role in the life and ministry of the church. And so this role in the United Methodist Church was only formally adopted back in 2012. And so we're still, although that's been 13 years, we're still educating around here's what it is and here's why folks might choose to do it. It is an emerging need for us as well, because as the situation around ministry context changes, sometimes there are individuals who want to be part of church leadership or want to have programmatic leadership roles, but they don't feel a call to ordained ministry, or they are not in a place where they're feel called to even pursuing like a licensed local pastor role. For them, they might already have another full-time job, and but they're wanting to do this as part of a living out their calling on a part-time basis or in some other way. It also gives us the opportunity, and you'll see this, there are some specializations that are available through various organizations. And so, for example, there's an opportunity to become a certified lay minister with a specialty in men's ministry that's coordinated through our United Methodist Men's Organization. There's an opportunity to have a specialization around parish nurse ministry. And so it is a role that can be very valuable. It can particularly be helpful, I think, in situations where you have a layperson who is serving in a leadership role on staff at a church. Perhaps as Jim does, he's in the worship and ministry, worship arts ministry. We also it'd be an opportunity for individuals who are in children or youth ministries. And sometimes we have individuals who are maybe they've had good experience in their particular field, but they've not led that particular ministry in a United Methodist church. And so this would be a good way for someone who is thinking about working in children or youth ministries, for example, but they've done that perhaps in a Baptist church or a Wesleyan church, Presbyterian church, to come in and become very grounded in our United Methodist practices and our policies and our history and the way that we do things. So before we really get into talking about what it is, we want to talk about what it's not. So the CLM role is not a path to ordination. It is not a box you check if you're wanting to explore ordination. For those that are really think they're called to a path to ordination, or a path to being a licensed local pastor because they really feel called to ordering the life and ministry of the church, and they want to do that in a set apart type of ministry opportunity, then the CLM role is not the best role for that. Because even when you're even if you are leading a local congregation, there are things that you will not be able to do as a CLM that a licensed local pastor would be able to do, particularly in the area of sacramental authority. It's also not something that you need to do for pulpit supply. Our a certified lay servant can preach in their own church. They can preach at other churches outside of their local church if they're asked to do that by the pastor of the other church or the district superintendent. And if you feel like you're really called to that type of a proclamation ministry, maybe the certified lay speaker role might be something that might be more interesting for you as opposed to the certified lay minister role. And then last but not least, we talked about this a good bit already. It's not really always a pastoral role. And so just because someone goes through this process of becoming a certified lay minister does not mean that they're going to be assigned by the bishop or the district superintendent to provide leadership as a pastor of a church, right? So they might be serving in a variety of other programmatic areas, maybe as Jim's doing on staff, or it may be something that they're doing more related to their particular area of focus. As I said, men's ministry, Hispanic ministry, United parish nurse ministry, those kind of things. So what is it then? Well, a certified lay minister is a lay person who feels led to serve their church in a variety of ways, someone who has calls and gifts for specialized lay ministry, and someone wanting to support the ministry of their local church, charge, community, and beyond. So I'm going to turn it over to Jim now, who actually, he is one of our conference's certified lay ministers, and he's going to talk with you more about what the certified lay minister is equipped to do and how the process works for us here in the Western North Carolina Conference.
So we've talked some about what a certified lay minister is not. So let's look about at a few things here that certified lay ministers are equipped to do. They are equipped to conduct public worship and to assist with worship, to care for the congregation, assist in program leadership, to develop new and existing faith communities. We have lots of new ways that through fresh expressions, you may have heard of some of those opportunities to develop new groups within the church. And so a certified lay minister would be equipped to do that, to preach the word, as we've said already, to lead small groups, particularly if those small groups are around the calling of that certified lay minister and the specific gifts of that lay minister, and to establish community outreach ministries that would be a part of that certified lay minister's calling. So these are all things that that this lay minister certification would kind of equip you to be able to do. So the certified lay minister is supervised by either the pastor or another clergy appointed to their church, or a supervising clergy person as assigned by the district superintendent. My supervisor is my senior pastor at my church, and she has been a mentor and part of that process ever since I initially went through the training to become a certified lay minister. So I think it's very important that that we develop those relationships, and that we find those mentors and the people who will kind of help us along our journey as we're discovering our gifts and discovering how we might channel those gifts into the work of the church. So certified lay ministers are accountable to their local church where they hold membership, to the congregation or the ministry setting where they serve, to the District Committee on Ordained Ministry, or DCOM. You may have heard of this before, and we'll talk a little bit more about how DCOM becomes part of the certification process. And then the Conference Committee on Lay Servant Ministries. These are all parts of this process that a certified lay minister will be connected to. So let's talk for a minute about how you become a certified lay minister. First of all, the prerequisite is that you must already be a certified lay servant or a certified lay speaker. We talked about those definitions earlier, and how you become a certified lay servant. Then once you have met that requirement, you obtain a written recommendation from your pastor and the church council or the charge conference of your local church where you hold membership. Part of this process, involves that interaction between you and your church and you and your pastor, and so that the church knows your interest in using your gifts and will be a part of helping shape a ministry for you. You complete a track of study for certified lay ministers relevant to your assignment. And so we'll be talking about that course of study and those 4 modules that you'll complete as part of that course of study. Then you'll receive a letter of recommendation from your district superintendent. And then eventually, once you've had all the requirements for certification, including appropriate screening and assessment as defined by the annual conference, reviewed by the Conference Committee on Lay Servant Ministries, and then referral to the District Committee on Ordained Ministry for examination of persons who have applied in writing to become certified lay ministers, and to make a recommendation for certification at the end of that process. So, how long does this process take to complete? The time that it takes you to complete it is really kind of up to you. The complete cycle can be completed in as few as 9 months. 4 to 5 months of that being coursework, plus 2 to 3 months of the evaluation process at the end. Candidates, of course, can take more time and can take as much time as needed to complete the coursework. The District Committee on Ordained Ministry interviews, those are typically in the spring, so candidates need to have everything completed by March of a particular year to be approved for recognition at annual conference in June. So we're going to be talking about the timeline on a later slide, But just know that if this is something that you're ready to start and you're motivated to complete and have the time to invest once you've seen what everything takes, it is possible to make all that happen by spring, so that you can then appear before your local decom in that cycle that they have in the spring. So part of what, as you're hearing more about the process and the timeline, I think it'd be good for you to be thinking about your time commitments and the time that you would have to invest, in the training, and kind of see what's going to work best for you, in order to make those things happen by spring. You can continue to work on the requirements, but it would only be in spring of each year when those can kind of come to completion, and when we can move to that next level. So just keep that in mind as you're hearing more about the timeline. So the training that is involved are 4 certified lay minister modules. And the first module is called Call and Covenant for Ministry. And it's in that module where you'll begin to review your understanding of theology, and particularly United Methodist theology, because I came to the United Methodist Church years ago through a student at the Wesley Foundation when I was in college. I'd grown up in a Baptist church. And so over the years, I've learned much more about being a Methodist, United Methodist, as I've been a member of the United Methodist Church. But I did learn a lot in this module about our Methodist heritage that was very important. And especially, if we're going to be kind of representatives, in leadership within the Methodist Church, it's important for us to have that understanding and that foundation. So that module also includes exploring spiritual gifts and developing a ministry covenant. And this is, I think, one of the most important parts of the certified lay minister process, because discerning what your spiritual gifts are and what God may be calling you to do, and then channeling that into a plan, a ministry covenant with your church, is a really important part of this process. And that's why it comes so early in this first module. Then there are 3 more modules: practice of ministry, organization for ministry, and connection for ministry. And we'll be talking about, there are 2 paths that you can use to cover these other 3 modules. We'll begin with module 1 together as a cohort, and we'll be working this fall on module 1 in October and November, working through that together. And I'll be leading that cohort, and that approximate 30 hours that it anticipates that it would take to cover that information would be done online together through a couple of Zoom meetings a month in October and November. Modules 2, 3, and 4 would be covered primarily. I did this process with my senior minister, who was my mentor, and we worked through modules 2, 3, and 4 through the fall and winter of the year that I pursued this certification. So we'll talk about some other options with that as well. But this is kind of the big picture overall look at the training that is involved in becoming a certified lay minister, the 4 modules. So as John mentioned earlier, beyond the certification as a certified lay minister, there are folks who across the greater, wider Methodist Church, United Methodist Church, who are finding particular specializations and ways that they want to live out their calling as a certified lay minister. These specializations are kind of in process. They're just emerging, and you can find that with some of the specializations, there are requirements that are already in line. This coursework is available beyond your CLM certification if you have a desire to pursue a specialization. Others are still in process, but John had mentioned some of them already: the parish nurse ministry, the children's faith formation, the men's ministry, church planter, congregational care, church administrator, ministry with young people, even some of the fresh expressions kind of group work like camping ministry, and then a culture of discipleship. So there are lots of possibilities beyond your certification as a certified lay minister as you kind of find your area of interest and specialty and where your gifts lie.
And Jim, I just might add, again, it's not a requirement that you pick a specialization, right? This is just a add-on for those who are interested in doing it, and it's available. It does take more time to go through those requirements, and there may be additional costs associated with it. But many, and I think I'm not sure. I cannot off the top of my head know if we have any of our CLMs who currently are working through a specialization path, but those tools and resources are available through discipleship ministries if individuals are interested in it.
Yeah, I think one thing that this really says is that this, as John mentioned, is an emerging ministry, and that there are more and more ways in which certified lay ministers can become involved and become very vital to the growth and the health of our church. So let's talk a little bit about how this will work. We're going to be using a participant cohort model. We'll be gathering bi-weekly for 2 months on Thursdays. Our first session will be the 1st of October, October the 9th. We'll meet from 7 to 9 p.m. on Zoom. And the cohort will work through Module 1 together. And I think that having others who are going through the same process and having the support of one another is an important thing. And I think it's wonderful that now that we have the opportunity through digital technology to be able to meet and to interact with one another. It really does give us a lot of opportunity to support one another and to be a part of a group. I think that's always important. We'll work together with the cohort through Module 1, like I said, the call and covenant for ministry. And while we're doing that, you will work to complete other modules through self-study. Again, with a mentor, with your minister, you'll have access to all those other modules, and we'll begin to work on Module 1 together as a cohort, and then you'll have the opportunity to continue that work. Participants in the program and your minister will meet with me as you near completion of the modules. We'll kind of discuss that process and what you're learning, what you're discovering about yourself, and kind of where all this is headed. And I'll also be available throughout that time to answer questions and things, because sometimes we don't even know the questions that we have until we arrive at them and need someone who might be able to answer them, because up front it's kind of hard to know what we might anticipate needing to know further down the line. But I will be available to meet with folks in the cohort and to be available by email and that kind of thing too, to answer questions throughout the process. And then there will be, at the end of this study, there will be conference evaluations that are part of this process. a background check, and that's just the typical one that anyone working in the church would be expected, or in any job for that matter. And then there's a psychological evaluation, and I'll tell you that when I first heard about this part of it, it seemed a little intimidating at first, a psychological evaluation. But let me put you at ease with this. The psychological evaluation was a series of surveys and inventories and things that you were asked to complete. Some were online, some were on paper. That then a psychologist looked through your results and then met with you, and you had an interview. And a lot of the process of that interview was giving you the results of some of those inventories and things. So you really learn a lot about yourself through this psychological evaluation. And I think that the discussion a lot of the times was around, like for instance, with me, one of the things was, how do you handle conflict? And so I know that probably I've tried to avoid conflict at all costs. And so if I know that I have that tendency to avoid conflict, then how does that help me in my ministry? Or how might that be, a barrier in my ministry? And so it was just kind of a point of discussion. Um, so so don't let the psychological evaluation part, and certainly as we go through this process together, we can talk more about what this is about. But when I first heard about the psychological evaluation, I had a lot of questions about that and wasn't sure what all that meant. So I wanted to say a few things there that might make you feel a little more at ease about that part of the process.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. And I would just add, this is a step that is in our process because it's also it's a step that is part of the process. For example, if someone wanted to become a licensed local pastor, and so since you don't really know where your CLM journey might lead you, and we want to make sure that folks are prepared if they choose to accept and are asked to be assigned to a local church for a small membership church. We want to make sure that you have access to the same tools from that regard and the same opportunity to learn about yourself as we make available for the licensed local pastors as well. So that's why that's part of our program.
So, like I mentioned, once we do the module one together as a cohort, then you'll have the opportunity to select one of two options to complete the remaining three modules. Most of you would likely choose to complete modules 2 through 4 with your local pastor or supervising clergy person. If you have someone else assigned who would be working with you through those exercises in the modules 2 through 4. And what that looked like for me is that I would spend time doing the required reading and answering questions and doing the reflections that were part of those modules. And then I would meet regularly with my minister and we would talk about what I'd been reading. I would share the responses that I had given in the modules. We would discuss those, and I would often, learn in much more detail, as the minister spoke from her experience, as a minister, and it gave some time to process the information within those modules. And so, through regular meetings with the supervising minister, you would complete those other three modules. Now, you might also choose to complete modules 2 through 4 on beadisciple.com. These are online, and you receive a certificate for proof that you've completed the work. For those, they do involve some Zoom meetings, I think, at the beginning and the end of each module, and then which would probably be synchronous, where you would meet at a certain time, but then there would be time that you'd be working asynchronous. You'd be working on the information in the modules. There is an additional cost if you do these on beadisciple.com, but if that fits your situation better, then that is an option. But I think most of us probably going through this process would be working with a mentor, minister, guiding us through the process, and many of you might prefer, having someone kind of walking you through that process one-on-one.
Jim, if I could just add there as well, this is why at the beginning of the process we require your pastor's approval for you to begin this journey, because it is you're going to be creating a ministry covenant agreement with your local church or with the church, or with how you're going to be serving. You may be asking your local pastor to serve in a mentor role for you, and it is going to take time and effort from their perspective as well to help you through that. So you'll need to talk with them, as just Jim said, like how often do we need to meet together to review the work I've done, and kind of those kind of things. However, I also want to point out that we don't always have it in a situation where the person who is the mentor is the local pastor of the church that you attend. We have had some CLMs who have gone through the process, and they've had a retired clergy person be their mentor, or there might be someone else. And I'm just throwing things out there. So like if you want to focus in a particular area, and there's another minister working in your district who is already working in that area or has a lot of knowledge and expertise in it, if it's okay, you want to have the conversation with your pastor about it. But if that other if that other pastor has the time and is willing to serve in that mentor role for you, that's fine as well. So I don't want you to think that just because maybe your pastor is going through a really busy season, or maybe it's a new pastor, and in your congregation, and they're like, I think this is great, I just don't really have time to do it right now. There are other options, as long as you're able to connect in with another clergy person to help provide that guidance and support for you.
Thanks, John. I think that's really important to remember, that there are people within our congregations, often retired clergy, who would be a wealth of information and experience that could often maybe even be a better fit. So the support that you'll receive from participating in the cohort, prayer would be one thing. We will pray together. We will, work on trying to continue to discern what our calling is, what our gifts are. That first module focuses us on spiritual gifts and where we see ourselves, and that discernment process, I think, is often very relevant when you start talking with other people, because when you are able to articulate what you think your calling is, and when you hear others, I think that's part of that discernment process also. The connection that the cohort will make will be very important. I think anytime that we're going through something and we're going through it with people who are also going through the same thing and understand what, that we have similar questions, we have similar needs, we have similar frustrations and concerns, and can offer support to one another. And that encouragement, I think, is important to kind of get us through the process. Whenever we're just out here on our own doing things, sometimes it's easy to get discouraged, but having a group of people that you're growing closer to, as you were, searching your faith together, I think that that encouragement can serve us well.
Great. Thank you, Jim. So with all that as kind of background around how the process is going to work, we wanted to share with you kind of an example timeline of how this could work. This is if everything goes great for you, and you don't have any kind of life events that comes up that makes you have to take a break or do those other kinds of things. So, as Jim mentioned, our fall cohort for this process will kick off in October, the October 9th, and then the cohort will meet. That's a Thursday night. That you'll meet with Jim every 2 weeks on Thursday nights. I think we actually run that through the first Thursday in December, to make sure
Yes.
that we've got plenty of time to get everything covered. While you're doing that, and particularly, as you get closer to the end of that process, you likely will want to go ahead and start working on modules 2, 3, and 4. So there can be a little bit of overlap in there once you get far enough along to where, you could start doing that process at the same time. And you want to hopefully have enough time to get, the target would be to get through all of the modules by the end of January. It could spill over a little bit into early February if you needed to, but you really want to try to get that wrapped up, because you need to go through the conference evaluation process relative to the background check, and more importantly, the psychological assessment. And we have a particular psychological practice that does that for us. And so you have to be worked into their regular practice schedule. And so it can be difficult to kind of, call them up and say, hey, I want to do my stuff. And they say, great. They're not likely not to say, they're probably not going to say to you, great, here's all the stuff. We'll talk next week. Like, it may take you a month to get your materials completed. Then they have to have time to review it and do their assessment. And then you've got to have the debrief conversation, and they've got to turn that information back into the district. So you really need to have declared, yes, I want to go through this step in the process by January. So we want to make sure that you're going to have those modules completed, because you can't do the other pieces until you've completed all the modules. So what you then will happen is, once your district committee on ordained ministry knows, yes, this person wants to come before us, they will add you to their schedule for their spring interviews. And they will ask you to write a short paper. I think it's, say, 6 to 8 pages, where there's a number of questions about your particular call to ministry and your understanding of some basic theology and some other kinds of things that they will ask you to write. And then you will need to submit that to them prior to your interview, so they can review that, get to know you, understand a bit about, why you're choosing to go down this path. Then during that same period of time, you would have a meeting with your district superintendent and make sure that he or she understands your ministry call, what you've done. They would take a look and say, yep, they've had all of the things done up to this point that they need to. And you would get a letter of recommendation from the district superintendent. So by the end of March, you're basically ready to move into your DCOM interview process. Those typically take place in early April. And then based on that, the DCOM could say, we see gifts here, but we think you need some additional time to study this part. So they can make a recommendation for additional study. Or it goes great, and there's no areas of where they ask you to do anything else, and they would make a recommendation to our conference committee on lay servant ministries. And the conference committee on lay servant ministries meets in May to review the recommendations that have come to us from the district committees on ordained ministry. We make sure that everything has been ticked and tied and everything's done there. There's not an interview process. That's more of us making sure that we're getting the recommendations right, and things have been done before getting up to us. And then we act on those recommendations. Once the committee votes to recommend you, that actually allows us to put your name into consideration for annual conference. And there is a process here where your name is added to the information that goes before all of the clergy in the annual conference. There's a report that's called the Business of the Annual Conference. And it requires us to list, here are the people that we are recommending for either initial certification or recertification. And and then that goes into that process. For those who successfully complete everything in the 1 year cycle, then we invite you to come to Lake Junaluska, and we do a recognition and give you your certificate as part of annual conference and an opportunity to celebrate your accomplishment there. And in our conference, those individuals who are certified lay ministers are by default members of annual conference. So once you are a certified lay minister, then you would be expected and invited to come to annual conference each year, even if you're not asked to be your church's representative or a district at-large representative. So you would be coming to annual conference going forward. So as you can see, it can be done, right? There's a lot of stuff that you have to do, but there's support for you, and we try to kind of make sure you stay on track. And as Jim shared, if life happens and you need to take more time to complete the modules, you can do that as well. But what we have to work towards each year is to say you've completed all your modules and you're ready to go by, say, January of the year, so that we can get in those evaluations and things that have to be done towards the end of the process. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the cost. So to participate in the cohort process, as with most of our lay servant ministry courses, the participant fee for that is $25. The book for that, for module 1, is also $25. So then once you've done that, as Jim said, you'll go through either the self-study option, where you're basically just buying the modules and the books, and then working through that on your own with your mentor, your pastor, or you can choose to do it through beadisciple.com. Beadisciple.com's fee for this is I think $80 per class. And then in both those, they may also have, there may be recommendations for books that you would want to buy or those kind of things to complete those as well. Once you've gone through all the modules, then the other pieces that come into play are the background check and the psychological assessment. Now, obviously, the big one here is the psychological assessment. And we understand $500 is not a small expense. The total cost of that assessment is closer to $1,000. And our conference, through the Board of Laity, we fund half of that cost, so that you as a candidate only have to fund half of that. And the agency that we work with allows you to split your $500 payment into 2 different payments, so you don't have to pay it all at one time. So there is a little bit of flexibility there. But this is a significant cost because it's a significant investment on yourself and from the conference perspective. But it is a lot of really good information that you get back about yourself, and that would help you in your ministry context. We encourage you that if you're doing this in support of your church, and particularly if you're going to be working in a ministry context with your church, that you speak with your pastor to see if there are some types of funding that might be available through your church, where they would be willing to help cover part of this cost for you. And our Board of Laity, because we feel so strongly about the program, we have some funds available as well for partial scholarships for those who have a demonstrated financial need. So if that is something that you'd like more information about, you can contact your district office. Your district office will put you in touch, or you can get in touch with Jim, and we can share more information about those opportunities with you and kind of what that would look like. So what do next steps look like? Well, that really kind of depends about that really is more about where you are in the process and what you need to get done. So if you are already, and I know many of you're already a certified lay servant, or you are a certified lay speaker, and you want to be in the cohort this fall, you need to make sure that you're talking about this with your pastor. There is a form that is available on the Lay Ministries website on our conference that will it allows you to kind of fill out your information, give a little bit of information about your call, and basically it's the form that allows your pastor and your charge conference to approve you to go forward in the program. Now, we don't yet have that registration site available, but we will have it up by September 1st. You'll need to register by September the 26th. And then those cohort meetings will start on October 9th. If you are not yet a certified lay servant and you want to start this fall, again, you need to go through the process of talking about it with your pastor. We expected that there might be some folks who this was new information for. And so we have, to become a certified lay servant, you have to do two things from a training perspective. You have to complete the Introduction to Lay Servant Ministries basic course, and you have to take any advanced lay servant ministries course, and then you have to be approved by your church. So we have an Introduction to Lay Servant Ministries course that's being taught on Tuesday nights in August. It'll be from 6:30 to 9:30, 4 consecutive nights. That registration deadline is this week, though. So if you haven't registered for that already and you're interested in it, I encourage you to visit the conference website and look under lay ministries, under ministries, and then lay ministries, lay servant ministries. You'll see the information there. If you've already completed a basic course, you've already done that, but you've never taken an advanced course, then you would want to sign up for the Discovering Your Spiritual Gifts advanced course, which we're offering in September. That's going to meet on Monday nights, starting on September 8th, 4 consecutive Monday nights from 6:30 to 9:30 via Zoom. And we put these courses out there to allow folks to complete these before the cohort process starts in October. So if you have done nothing, you need to take both those courses. If you've already completed Introduction to Lay Servant Ministries, then you would need to take the Discovering Your Spiritual Gifts course, and then you would need to go through registering for the cohort starting in October, and then go through that process. And all that being said, if you're saying, wow, this is a lot of information, I don't know if I can do it this fall, I don't have time to actually get these courses in, that's fine too. If you want to wait and you're not aiming to go through this CLM process this year, then we will offer other options for Introduction to Lay Servant Ministries and other advanced courses that will be offered through our districts. Sometimes the districts offer those as in-person classes. Sometimes they do them via Zoom, which makes them available to anybody from across the conference. That information gets published out in our conference e-news. And so if you can either choose to do this now, and I know that's kind of an aggressive timeline, it's a lot of commitment, or you can say, great, this helps me with understanding where I'm at, and I'm just going to wait and I'm going to take my classes, and maybe I'll start the cohort process next fall. So we've covered a lot of information. We wanted to pause and just see what questions you might have. So if you want to put your question in the chat, or if you can, if you want to come off of mute and ask your question, then we will do our best to get an answer for you. Michael, I see your question about the Hispanic Ministries lay missioner. I don't have a lot of information on that, but I have your email and I can send you a couple of links after the session that'll give you some more information on that. So thank you. Yes. So the question is, if you want to be just a lay servant at your church, do you just need to take the basic course in August and Discovering Your Gifts in September and get the recommendation of your pastor? That's exactly right. It actually has to be approval of your pastor and your church council or your charge conference. But if you just want to be a certified lay servant, you just need to take those two classes. and you would be a certified lay servant. Once you are a certified lay servant, you are required to take at least one advanced lay servant ministries class every 3 years to maintain that certification. I will share that as a certified lay minister, you're required to participate in a ongoing learning opportunity at least once every 2 years, but you are required to have a ministry review and a follow-up interview each year with the district committee on lay servant ministries, which again is similar to the practice that they do for licensed local ministers. So, there is some differences there because of the more engaged role that you would have. But there is no additional cost for that. So like once you go through that process of having your background check done and doing the psychological assessment, there is no kind of annual cost you have to pay as a certified lay minister. You just have to go through the ministry review and the conversation with the district committee to maintain your ongoing status. Vicky has asked about getting a copy of the page with the requirements. Yes, we can. So our presentation will be recorded. It will be posted this week to the conference website along with a copy of the presentation deck. But let me also say that there is information about these requirements for all of the roles: certified lay minister, certified lay speaker, and certified lay minister, that are available on the conference website already. And let me see if I can. Give me just a second. Now it doesn't have like the timeline and the cost details and those kind of things, but I'm going to put a link in the chat, and that's a one-page summary overview for certified lay servant, certified lay speaker, and certified lay minister. Right. I completed the basic course. So, Mike, I see you're saying you've completed the basic course in another district. As long as we have that information captured at the district level, what we would ask you to do is let us know which district it was in, and we can confirm with them that you've completed that, just to make sure that the records are in sync. As long as they have a copy of that information in your learning record, we don't actually need a copy of your certificate, but if they need it, we could ask for it. So let me show you. Someone's asked about how do we get the form for the recommendation from the pastor, and it's called this form of intent. Again, this is available on the Lay Servant Ministries page on our conference website, but I will put the link here in the chat, and I'll stop sharing there, and we'll instead see if I can. So hopefully you can, somebody give me a thumbs up if you're seeing the intent and recommendation form. Okay. So that link takes you here. You just put your name, you choose, which district you're in, your church name, your contact information. It asks you to answer, kind of what is your call, what gifts for ministry, and how do you think those gifts equip you for your call? And then here your pastor would say, I recommend this person to begin serving as, and it's either a certified lay speaker or a certified lay minister, right? They would check one of those boxes, and then their pastor would sign it, and then they would make sure that it goes before the church or charge council, and they would, recommend that as well. You typically have your chairperson or your secretary of your of your church council would sign that, and then you, as a place for you to sign it, you would just scan that document and email that back to your district office. So one of the district administrators for your district office would receive that, and then they would let us know that yes, because what we do is we go back to them and we say, hey, here are the individuals that have signed up for the CLM cohort. They should have provided you a form saying that it was they had been approved to do that, and they can come back and let us know, yes, John has submitted his form, Jim hasn't submitted his form. So then we can send you an email and say, hey, we know you've signed up for the cohort, but we haven't got your form yet. Can you follow up with your pastor and make sure this gets done? Those kind of things. So our CLM programs are really coordinated through, our lay servant ministry programs are coordinated through our districts. So we want to make sure that they are in the process, or in the loop. Are there any other questions that folks have for this evening? So Tony's asking, could you take module 1 this October, but the other modules on a later timeline with a goal? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so you can do that. There's, if you want to go through the process and say, I can take module 1 now, but I need to wait until the spring, and then I'll start doing modules 2 through 4. And, that works better for me. It works better for my pastor. You're fine to do that. We just don't want folks. We want folks to know there is an annual cycle, because we have to get you approved through annual conference. So we just don't want folks to feel like they can just say do it in the finish up in the summer and then become a certified lay minister in October, right? We got to get you on that annual cycle at some point, but you have as much time as you need to try to get through those modules. Okay, this obviously will be you'll have this information as well in the presentation. We did just want to before closing would want to share with you, Jim is leading this for us this fall. And so you see his email there is jimbrooks973@gmail.com. And if you have other questions after this evening, you can feel free to email Jim or email myself. We'll be glad to get you the information that you need. So we thank you very much for your time this evening. Thank you for your interest in lay servant ministries. Thank you for those that are already serving as a certified lay servant. We really appreciate all that you're doing in your local church and beyond. We are here to help equip you and enable you and to encourage you in your ministry as lay people. It's just an honor to be in ministry with you and with our clergy in our conference. So with that, we bid you a good evening. Thank you for your time, and we hope to see many of you in a class in the future. Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone. Have a blessed night.